I want to remind everybody that Geekvolution does have a Patreon. For just $2 a month, you can get access to Geekvolution After Dark, which is me and Eric pal around and talking for an hour about whatever random stuff we feel like talking about. We each bring a list of stuff that usually are the kinds of things we wouldn't usually talk about on the channel. I mean, a lot of it's really geeky, but just the things that we don't have a place for, or things that can get kind of controversial and strange. And we get wacky, and we have a lot of fun on that show.
This
and
last one got real raunchy.
It did, yes. Not because either of us was in an especially raunchy movie. That was probably the least I've sworn in 9 shows, I think. But it was because you were talking about a book that you brought up on the last Read a Book, where you were like, I can't actually talk about anything that happens in this, so go see After Dark. So if you would like to see what he was talking about in the book that was called
Dark City.
Dark City.
Sorry, Wicked City.
Dark City is a different thing.
Wicked City.
It's R, but it's not raunchy in...
It's not
especially
X.
in that kind of way. Yeah, I can only imagine.
You're now a person who knows what I was talking about when I said I can't talk about this on the channel.
Yeah, there was a me before that. I heard that, and a me after that.
I didn't read anything.
I wish. Yeah, sometimes I wish I could go back in time. I'm trying to imagine what Wicked City would do with an automat. But let's not imagine that. Let's not imagine that. But anyway, if you wanna see that, go to patreon.com/geekvolution and sign up there. Like I said, it's just $2 a month. There's some higher tiers with some more really cool stuff, but that also gets you access, the $2 tier, to a monthly hangout with me. So lots of fun stuff that you get to do there on Patreon. We really appreciate everybody that helps us out in that way. And now we're gonna jump right into Geeks Not Nerds. Here we go. Hello everyone, we are Geeks Not Nerds. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
And today, Eric and I are going to talk about, and well, just remember that these are segments that are also their own videos. Eric and I are going to talk about a topic that Eric came up with. Eric wanted to talk about adaptations of comics from other things. So not comics being adapted to something else, but things being adapted into comics. And Eric has something of a rant having to do with that, and we're going to extend that to an entire Geeks Not Nerd. So what is your about this?
It's that whenever we take something from one medium and put it into comics, comics does not get the freedom or liberty that any other medium taking something else from another medium gets. So a comic book adaptation of a film is never going to be like a novelization of a film, where you can add backstory and you can add scenes that aren't in the movie. Sometimes comic adaptations will have scenes that were cut from the film, but it's not like a novelization where you can actually add background to character
stuff out.
Yeah, it is just the film. And when you
especially when it's a one-shot as opposed to a miniseries, but even with a miniseries, it's really just a fleshed out one-shot, not fleshed out in that you get more backstory and stuff, but just in that the panels are larger and they take up more space.
Yeah. And then when you take books and bring them to comics, they're either like word for word almost exactly, or they're essentially abridgments. We never give... the example I will go to is Dracula. There are, I believe, 4 or 5 major adaptations of Dracula in comics, and they're all relatively the same, because they're all basically just the book. You go look at any Dracula movie, and they all take such liberties, and can go anywhere they want, and do whatever they want. I'm not saying that we haven't done different things with Dracula as a character, but whenever we're adapting the book...
Specifically.
For some reason, comics feel the need to... like, just do exactly what it is. We don't change plot points, we don't adapt for the medium.
Exactly. Now, some people are probably going to hear that and think, well, Eric, isn't it nice to be faithful to the source material? But the problem is, different mediums have different advantages and disadvantages, and so you, to some degree, want to change things whenever it's appropriate to, in order for it to make sense in that medium. I always go to year one with this, with the adaptation of Frank Miller's comic into the animated movie, where it was basically verbatim, and it was too much right off the page, and it didn't turn it into a movie. It was just a comic, but it was essentially
like a
fully
comic.
animated motion comic, and that actually really hurt it. It was, I think it is possible to be too faithful to the source material, and this is the problem that, and I completely agree with you, that you very often have whenever you take a book and you turn it into a comic book. It's like, it turns out almost like an illustrated novel, even if it has word balloons, before it's the comic book adaptation of this thing. Like you want to experience the visual medium, like allow some of the stuff that you would usually get in description and exposition in a novel to be fleshed out visually. It's a visual medium.
There was the thing that made me think of this was we were talking about the Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep comic book.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about getting that because I'd not read it and I'd wanted
Philip
to.
K. Dick, and for anybody that isn't familiar with it, it's not like Blade Runner the comic. It's the
novel. And I'd heard that it was like word for word the novel. It's been maybe 2 or 3 years since I've reread that novel. I was like, oh, that might be fun to go back.
It's been about that long for me too.
It might be fun to go back and just read through it as a comic book. Until I realized it's not just like, because I'd always heard line for line, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I didn't realize you would have a comic book panel and then a caption describing what's happening in the panel, and that you would have captions that would say "he said" before a speech balloon. Like, it is every single word of the novel put to pictures, and that's absurd to me. Like, that's not utilizing the comic medium in any way. Why even make it?
It's almost, I mean, I have two reactions, like to why you would do that. The first is, like, what is the purpose of it then? Is it like so that people who you can't get to open up a book will actually read the book, and you put every word in there so that they'll actually read the book because they need the pictures in order to look at it? Is it like some of us that do better with Shakespeare if we have if we have the stage play, you know what I mean? But then it was supposed to be a play in the first place.
It's supposed to be
that's
seen,
actually
it's not supposed to be read.
Yeah, that's as long as it's being presented properly, that's actually more authentic. But like so like maybe that's part of the idea. But I also think that with something like Do Androids Dream, whoever put that together, because I don't even know who made that, but
I'm not sure.
Whoever put that together might be looking at it almost like gospel. You know, like you can't, like, it's almost nearly like a religious thing.
And that's fine. I love that book, but you can't
take anything out of it because you're like dismembering this great work or something. No, it's an adaptation.
You can cut "she nodded" if the panel is someone doing this.
And yeah, that's not the same thing as what you were talking about before. You were like, well, why can't we take liberties?
Yeah.
You can present that book and not changing the stuff that happens. You might have to lose some scenes here and there, but like for the most part, like, obviously they didn't. They went exactly word for word. But like, you can make the story the same thing without, like, okay, we're going to change the ending because, like, with Watchmen, we didn't think that was appropriate for a film. You know that we could present it right, or we had a better idea, we thought, whatever. But it is a graphic novel now. It's not a novel. Why would you leave the dialogue tags in?
Yeah, it's really weird.
Absolutely bizarre.
And that was my, like, oh, I'm not going to buy this. I didn't realize it was done like I'm not going to buy this because I can just read the book.
Yeah.
That's a little different, but that was the kind of genesis point for this, of just like, why can't comics take more liberties with their adaptations? There are so many things that are improved when they go from one medium to another. The Godfather, from my understanding, is like a fine book, and then they made it a great movie. There are no comic adaptations like that. And there are novelizations that people like hold up and they're like, this was a great novelization. As good as the film, better than the film, like that kind of a thing.
Improved on it.
Yeah, especially if it's not a great movie.
Yeah, or if there's important scenes that were cut.
Yeah. There's no comic adaptations like that. I mean, there's a couple that like people like I think it's Simonson did the adaptation for Alien.
Oh, interesting.
Like, there's a couple of notable ones like that, but even then it's just Alien, but you get to see it depicted by, a famous artist. You almost don't even need the words.
The only things I can think of that are, and they're almost not even really adaptations, that are, taking something that was meant to be from one medium and turning it into comics, that people really hold up, are scripts that never got produced.
That's true. Green Hornet by Kevin Smith is really good.
Obviously, the Star Wars.
The Star Wars is wonderful.
Obviously,
kind of.
Sure. Yeah, the art is brilliant. But then you have City on the Edge of Forever. We've talked about that. You have the Two-Face treatment from Batman. But some of these things, I mean, besides that, because that was just a treatment, those are both Harlan Ellison things. But and also RoboCop 2.
Yes.
We've been
And
talking
3.
about that a lot. 3 is that way too?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they also adapted his script for 3, but I've not read that one.
Some of these things are done verbatim, word for word. The difference is they were, and like City on the Edge of Forever is that way. I think the Star Wars is that way.
Yes.
But the difference is what you're looking at is basically storyboards for a thing that was intended to be a movie in the first place. Like, you are basically you're adapting it to the medium that it was meant to be made in the first place. That's almost not even adaptation. It's a script. Like, you can look at screenplay as its own medium. Like, there are benefits to reading a screenplay and getting an enjoyment out of that, in the same way that you can read a storyboard in the form of a comic book. So, like, I'm not going to say that a script has to be produced before it's readable, or before you can use that. But obviously, the Star Wars and Star Trek, City on the Edge of Forever, these are things that were meant to be filmed. When you put those into a visual medium, it makes sense to go word for word because you're using all the words that would have been spoken.
Yeah. And you're already kind of putting it into a visual medium. Like, and
that's the closest
comic scripts and film scripts aren't that different.
Right.
Like, I don't think, unless you're going to do some edits, I don't think you need a writer taking a film script. Like, you just give it to an artist and they figure out the panel layout.
Like nothing against the Tiptons, and I interviewed them about City on the Edge of Forever. They were great, but I wasn't entirely sure. I want to get in trouble for saying this. I'm not entirely sure why they were needed. Like, I would love to know what that problem. Well, and they talked to me about it a little bit. And I sort of got it, but I still feel like you have a good artist. You can, Woodward. Like, Woodward knows what he's doing.
Yeah. So I think it's. I don't understand why, and I guess this is part of comics being like a slum medium kind of a thing, where like it's not as respected. So for some reason, it can't take as many liberties as.
Well, and it's not appreciated as sometimes. I mean, more so now than it ever has been. Obviously,
Sure.
We can teach this in college now, but we're still in a place with a lot of people where it's still like a midpoint kind of medium where you're supposed to be imagining it as a movie in one direction or as a book in some other direction. Like, I really think that some of these things get made because they're for people that are too lazy to read.
No, and that's totally fair. They do, and they're not being treated as adaptations. But even when it's ones with like talent behind it, you got me a Dracula for Christmas that I already owned.
Was
actually
it terrible?
No, it's not bad.
Oh, okay.
It's actually by I think it's Leah Moore. It's Alan Moore's daughter. But like they made a big deal out of how faithful it was to the novel, and I'm like, yeah, but so are these ones. I think Archie Goodwin is the one that did the Marvel Dracula. Like that, it's also quite faithful to the novel. Like,
well, we had that already.
There was a graphic novel adaptation of I Am Legend at one point. That I heard was like to a fault. Like if the page said he turned left, we got a panel of someone turning left.
What is the point of that? The only people that are going to appreciate it are the people that also read the book. Like, I feel the same way about these things.
But then I feel bored.
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel the same way about this as I do adaptations to any medium. It needs to stand on its own. You need to be able to enjoy it and being completely unfamiliar with the material. Otherwise, what's the point? I don't understand making something just for the people that are already familiar with it. I don't understand making something that is like supplementary to the material. We don't have to give you all the information because you already know it. But why? Like, I'm not saying that it's not fun knowing something to then look at it in another medium. But I think if it's going to be a long-lasting, I mean, if it's meant to be disposable, whatever your plan is. But like, if you want it to be something that's going to stand the test of time, it needs to have its own legs. And so why not also do that with comic media? Like, I would say that if you make an adaptation of like any novel into the comic medium, you should read that and at least be able to say, if you haven't read the book, like, I have a complete story and I understand what happens. Like, you might not be able to say I've read that book. In fact, you shouldn't say that. You can't. Even if the Harry Potter movies didn't feel like as supplemental reading as I felt like they did, where like there's a prerequisite for some of those movies. They're missing story points that you really should have had.
I really think those Harry Potter movies are like abridgments of the book.
Yeah.
That's what they feel like to me.
But even if they didn't feel that way, you can't watch that movie and say you've read the book.
Yeah. The one main series that jumps out to me that does transcend this, now I've not read personally, but my little sister has, and she loves them, and she read the books as well, is Scotty Young's Oz series.
Right, yeah.
Apparently Scotty Young's Oz series is a legitimate comic book that I believe is completely faithful to the novels, but adapts it to a comic book medium and tells the story on its own.
Now, what about Dark Tower?
Dark Tower...
I mean, it's better at this, yeah?
Well, Dark Tower's weird, because the first one is the flashback stuff of the fourth book. And then everything after that is all new material. And then it starts adapting the books, and I haven't actually read the stuff adapting the books. The first one is really good at adapting that backstory stuff.
I read a little of that and liked a lot.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's also a really good one. But the majority of that series is not adapting. Or I guess now probably the majority of that series is, but...
And I also don't want to say anything against illustrated novels, because I think you can really enhance a story with supplemental visuals. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I also don't think there's anything wrong with, as long as you know what you're getting yourself into, publishing a comic book that is actually not really a comic book, that is actually pictures with words that you read at the bottom. And some of our great comic writers have done these things. I can't think of anything right
Morrison's
now,
got one in Batman.
Does Gaiman have something like that? Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm not sure. Dennis O'Neil also has one with Batman.
But I've read things like that I like.
Yeah.
That can be really cool. You just have to know what you're getting yourself into.
I'm sure there's a Hellboy somewhere, but maybe I'm wrong. Bendis has written things like that. There's actually an issue of Rising Stars that's like that. It's a thing we like to experiment with occasionally.
But I think, and this will be my final word on this, I think part of the problem is that comics still is such a relatively new medium that you have a lot of people that for many years worked in the medium without fully appreciating and understanding what can be done with that you don't have to hold people's hands, that you don't have to write out every single action beat that you're looking at right now. Think about somebody who's not really familiar with the medium that is asked to come in and adapt literature to it. They're going to overcompensate, and I think that's part of the problem.
I won't say I've never enjoyed any of these. I haven't
attempted a lot of them.
I enjoyed the...
There's a lot of Bible ones.
There are a lot of Bible ones. I feel like that would be easier. You get to add dialogue. Like you should... I bet you none of them do that. I bet you most of them are just Bible text with pictures.
Or they're for kids and they're clearly for kids.
Yeah. But there's a series called Legend of Dritz that has partially been adapted. Those were quite good. But the thing that comes up in all book adaptations is over-reliance on panels telling me things. It's almost like
narration boxes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's almost like book comics are like 10 years back, because they feel like they have to get text from the book in.
Yeah.
They have to have all these caption panels, and like it makes them feel less like authentic. Is
it almost like a Killing Your Darlings kind of thing, where like you feel like you're losing the writer of the original material?
But we don't do that with movies.
No, that's true.
We don't just randomly add in voiceover narration to get good prosaic lines into films.
Generally speaking, I mean, I think there are some movies that do that with bookended voiceovers, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean there's a couple of films that don't have where the book I'm thinking of American Psycho and Fight Club, where we added narrations where I guess both of those books kind of had narrations because they were first person. I think they're both first person present, but anyways, but yeah, I've enjoyed some book adaptations, but I also don't know if they're good enough that I can hand to someone and go, you should read this. Like I enjoyed them for what they were as a representation of the book, but not
But you
as
had to have read that narrative in the first place.
Yeah, I like them. For the most part, I read them as a refresher course. It's a faster way to be like, oh yes, this is this book.
I said I was done, but I also think it's maybe important to mention, I do this every time, I also think it's probably important to mention that the one thing, even if it does put everything verbatim and you have the dialogue tags and you're basically reading the novel while you're looking at pictures, you are at least seeing somebody else's interpretation of what was happening in the description from the novel, and I guess that can be useful just as an exercise where it's like we all read things differently, and when we're reading a book, we have to use our imagination and create 100% of it in our brains. So maybe it's interesting to look at somebody else in like what they came up with, but. You get that in an illustrated novel. I don't really understand the point of looking at all of the text while I'm also getting that. Especially because it gets redundant.
I am starting to think of like certain adaptations. I'm like, oh no, there are a couple of good. Conan.
Yeah.
Conan's a long-running beloved franchise that constantly readapts Robert E. Howard stories.
To the point where I think some people think it's a comic first.
Yeah. I've seen people. Didn't somebody ask if we were going to do Conan on Marvel Mania or something?
Yeah, we were like that. It was a book first. It doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count as a Marvel comic. But there's actually a couple of fancy ones. I don't think there's some Elric stuff and stuff like that. But anyways,
real quick before we go on to rants, because we're over time, but I wanted to ask you if you could throw out maybe a book or two or a series or two that you think are like really ripe for comic adaptation, and how have we not tried that? And again, we're saying like to actually fully adapt it and make it a comic book, not just verbatim put that on the page and put some pictures in it.
Well. Okay, first, I want to name off a couple of series that we shouldn't do, because we keep doing this, and we need to stop it. If it's a fantasy series that's 600 pages a book, don't even try. We have so many started. We have Game of Thrones, Wheel of Time, the Name of the Blade, something like that. We have so many of these where they're like 600-page novels, they're like eight novel series, and we're like, we're going to adapt it verbatim as a comic book, and it's like, okay, so it took 60 issues to do the first book, and you're going to finish this?
Well, it sounds like you're just doing it wrong if you do it that way. Like,
yeah, but then...
you have to cut it down some.
Yeah, I don't... Stop doing that. It doesn't work. Stop it.
But I mean, if you could turn a Game of Thrones into a TV show, and it doesn't have to be 15 seasons to get through the first 2 books, then why can't you do it with comics?
Because comics are, like, it's the monthly thing? Like, I think you could do it graphic novels. I think if you released graphic novel adaptations of each...
but just do it right then.
But if you're doing it as issues, like, it's nuts. And I don't think any of them finish. I think all of them get canceled.
But can you think of one where you're like, how have we not done this?
I'm trying to think of something that... Because a lot of the things I can think of have been done to some degree. You go first.
Oh, sure. Well, this is on my brain because I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. Yeah, that's interesting. And there's a lot of different ways that you can conceptualize that visually. We have 2 remarkably different looks for that world with the TV miniseries that was made with like $1.98 in the 80s, and then with the 2005 film. But no, that's great. I would love that. Also, that needs to happen so that we can finally get the Doctor Who crossover, because it is a crime that hasn't happened.
That's true.
There is no reason that Hitchhiker and Doctor Who can't be in the same universe. I've said this forever. Of course,
and it should be with Tom Baker.
Was yeah, I agree with that. And when you look at his some of his seasons, especially the stuff that Adams worked on, it's got such a Hitchhiker vibe to it. But I've seen other Doctor Who things, even in the modern series, that remind me a lot of Hitchhiker. Like, that crossover needs to happen. And I think comics would be the perfect place for it.
Yeah.
But this is on my brain because I'm going to talk about this later, but where's my Animorphs comics? Where are they? Like, that would be the way to bring that back. Because there's been talk about a movie for years. I don't think there would be enough interest in that now. I kind of see that tanking. I don't know if, like, a modern... I'll talk about this later, but I don't know if a modern, like, teen audience is really going to eat that up so much as just the adults that kind of half remember it. But I think it could work in comics okay.
I can't think of any, like, prose works, but, there's a couple of, like, Japanesey things that I'd like to see us get a crack. Like, I'd love to see us get to do, like, a Gundam series.
Yeah.
Or, like, Kamen Rider or something where we got to do our own version.
Well, I said this for the longest time with Power Rangers and finally got that.
Yeah. But I'd like to see a property that we haven't really adapted well, where we get to do our own...
We don't have to... the medium we do it
with. Yeah, and we don't have to worry about, like, everyone getting angry because it's like, well, that's not accurate. It's like, well, we're doing our own, like the Spawn manga. Essentially, the reverse version of the Spawn manga.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
It's really sad the Spawn manga is one of the best Spawn things. You want to go on to rants?
Yeah.
Eric, what is your rant for this week, sir?
Oh, wait. Flashback. Or Snow Crash. I know it's a TV show.
Yeah, okay.
Snow Crash was originally supposed to be...
I didn't know you had more stuff.
No, it just clicked in my head because it was originally supposed to be a graphic novel.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, then that's perfect.
It was going to be completely computer generated. Completely computer generated, and thank God that didn't happen in 1990.
At the time, because we've seen those comics, and oh god, well, especially 1990. Yeah. Have you ever seen the Batman one? Because it's...
There's an Iron Man one, too.
Oh boy. What is it? Digital Justice.
I want to say Iron Man's is like Crash or something like that.
I have Digital Justice. We should review that.
We should review that.
That would be hilarious. It's right over there.
Sorry, rants.
Yeah, sure. What would you like to rant about this week, sir?
I forgot.
I don't know. It's in my pocket. Let me ask my pocket.
Let me check my...
Excuse me, pocket?
I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget.
What am I ranting about?
I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget.
And now, pocket rants.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to keep setting this up. Eric, what would you like to rant about today?
This will tie in slightly to the the Halloween-y thing.
Mine is also a Halloween rant.
There needs to be a middle ground for... Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to set this up. So, a wonderful thing has happened, which is we have decided to reassess trash films. And we are giving them these beautiful releases with all these special features, commentaries, behind-the-scenes documentaries, revisitings, and we're doing it for all
bad
these...
movies? Is that what you're saying?
Well, not just bad movies, but like B movies. Like we're doing this.
Okay,
we're doing this for a lot of John Carpenter's films have all been re-released with these amazing special editions. Buckaroo Banzai just got one of these. It's really great.
Yeah, it had a lot of special features.
Shout Factory or Scream Factory is what they do their horror movies as. Scream Factory, Arrow Video. They're doing wonderful. They did one for Reanimator from Beyond. They're doing these wonderful reproductions. Or not reproductions, but re-releases of these horror films. The problem is they're really expensive. And if you just want the movie, there's not an alternative. Because a lot of these were either never put on DVD or are long out of print. And the only in-print version are the, like, $30 to $40 super special editions.
And then it gets harder to get new people to watch them.
I want an in-between. I love that we're putting out... I love that we are recognizing the worth of some of these kind of trashier films, but I also wish there was a more affordable way to just get the movies if you just wanted the movies.
I hesitate saying this because you know how I feel about having too many of these things, but Shout Factory having a streaming service is not the worst idea I've ever heard.
No, that would be wonderful.
That's not the worst idea I've ever heard.
No, they have so much.
That would be the alternative.
Yes, that would also be an alternative, and I would accept that.
$5 a month.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
Yeah.
And again, like, we have too many of them. I don't want to keep paying for more of them.
It would be like...
Think about how much Shout Factory has. Like, how cool would it be if you could stream all the Sentais?
Yeah.
The same way that you could stream all the Power Rangers. Because Shout Factory releases all the Sentais. Or has released some of them.
All the ones... I think we're getting In Space soon, or what In Space is based on.
So we got through Turbo?
Everything's starting with Zhu Ranger, which is what Mighty Morphin was based on.
So we didn't go back. We got Car Ranger or any of that stuff.
Which is really
that would be great.
The one right before Zhu Ranger is supposed to be one of the best, and I really want to see it.
I've heard
that. It would be like if all of the movies that were released on Criterion were forevermore only released on Criterion, and you had this drop, $60 to get Seven Samurai or something,
Yeah, or like if comics were only released in omnibus format.
Yeah, they never released trades. You either got the single issues or the omnibus. That's it. That's all there is.
Nothing in between.
Yeah, I wish there was a more affordable option for some of these legitimately great trashy movies that are finally getting the respect they deserve, but I think are made less accessible.
Yeah.
So that's my rant.
It's great. It's like good on you, but there are people that you would love to try to get to look at some of that stuff.
And because some of these,
buy those things.
And some of these I've not seen. I've not seen From Beyond. I really want to see From Beyond. It is the movie they did after Reanimator and also stars Jeffrey Combs, also based on the H.P. Lovecraft story.
I want to see that too.
It's only released in this super special edition. I've never seen it. I don't want to spend $30 on a movie I haven't seen. I assume I'll like it, but I don't know. But
so then they're aiming it to a real elite audience.
Yeah, and I just wish there was an in-between. I wish there was an affordable... If you want to see the movie, here's this release as well.
Eric, my rant is real simple. This is a Halloween rant, and this is a rant that I could have done, I guess, on Halloween, or before Halloween, because now we're a little bit past it, but it's going to roll back over, just so you know. Like, unless the world ends somewhere between now and next October 31st, this rant will be relevant again in, like, 11 months. But I was kind of... This is a rant I might have thought of, but I was reinforced, or this idea was reinforced by the sheer number of houses I saw like this year when I was taking my kids trick-or-treating. Eric, if you're going to deck your house all out for Halloween, leave somebody back to give the kids candy.
Yeah.
I hate that. And I see it every year. This year I saw it more than I ever have. Now, as I said earlier on the Mega Show, it was really cold that night. And so there were probably people who were like, nobody's going to trick-or-treat. And maybe they decided it wasn't a bad idea to leave their house. But you'll have people that like love Halloween, and they'll really deck their house out. It's very awkward when you're taking your kids trick-or-treating and they don't have a porch light on. Because they might be there, and they might be giving candy out, but they don't have the porch light on, and you're not supposed to go to a house that doesn't have the porch light on. So as a parent, like when the kids get really excited, oh, look, they have all the Halloween stuff, I want to go to that house. Yeah, of course you do. And So I'm awkward. I'm feeling awkward and putting between a rock and a hard place because I'm going, well, they might be there. And maybe the fact that they have all this Halloween stuff should mean I should walk up to them. But the rule is, don't go to a house that doesn't have a porch light on. So chances are they're not there. We had at least one house, if not two, I can't remember, where we found a house like that didn't have a porch light on. And we passed them. And then somebody came out and was like, oh yeah, no, we're here. Why isn't your porch light on?
Well, tangentially, going back to some childhood trauma, don't leave your porch light on if you don't have candy.
Yeah.
Because I've walked up to some angry
and if
houses.
you have attack dogs, and if you don't want to speak with children, and don't do that.
Yeah.
Now that has not happened to me yet.
You never.
With my kids.
It's happened. At least
when I was a
once.
kid, I don't remember.
That was significant enough when I was a kid that I remember it happening, of being like get out of here.
I just had this thought. One of these days, I'm going to have taken my kids trick-or-treating more times than I went trick-or-treating when I was a child.
Oh, really?
Some year that will happen.
Because when do you stop?
Well, I'm not sure, but I'm just saying, especially if Sarah and I ever have a third kid, which we're talking about maybe doing.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
Someday I will have taken my kids trick-or-treating more years than I went. I will feel older when that happens, is what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying.
That's a thought I've never had before, where I'm like, oh, wait a minute, someday that will happen. Because I probably stopped around, 12 or something. But, Jason's 7. I haven't taken him every single year.
Well, when Jason hits 12... You'll have done it 12 years with him, and then Freddy's 3 years.
And then if there's another one.
Yeah, yeah.
So, no, there could be 15 or 20 years of taking my children trick-or-treating.
That's interesting. I never thought about that.
Right? Anyway. Well, folks, thanks as always.
Pleasant rants.
Yeah, no, that was fun. Thanks for watching GNN, guys. We sure appreciate it. If you're watching just the video of Geeks Not Nerds and not the whole mega show, thanks for clicking on this. We sure appreciate it. And we'll see you again next week.